Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to share my other title screen so you can see that we are here talking about innovative solutions for financial, physical, and mental well-being. My name's Alicia Linehan. I am your moderator and a collaborator at heart, and I look forward to having a really great discussion with all of you today. Before, just a couple of housekeeping items. We are going to be having some specific questions that we're going to answer, but really we'd love to hear from all of you based on some of the content that we're going to be discussing. So if you look down at the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll see that Q&A button. If you click there, you'll be able to ask any of us some questions, and we will make sure that we get to them as if we have time permits. We have about 25 minutes, so I'm going to start my countdown clock, and I'm going to let my three panelists introduce themselves quickly, and we'll start right into the questions. All right. So Matt, why don't you start, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Matt Miclette. I'm a board-certified psychiatric nurse. I'm also the director of clinical operations at NeuroFlow. We're a behavioral health technology company. I'm a former Army officer. I come from a military medicine background. Particularly treated combat trauma at Walter Reed and led the inpatient psych unit at Fort Hood.
Awesome. Thank you for your service. And Nick, you want to go next?
Sure. Hey guys, my name's Nick. I'm a Coast Guard helicopter pilot by day and CEO and co-founder of UPROOT Homes by night and weekend. We have a hybrid home ownership solution to privatized housing and active duty home ownership challenges that allows a series of military families to work together to pay down a single mortgage, reduce costs, and we guarantee the equity so that they can build generational wealth at every duty station to improve their financial wellness.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for your service as well, Nick. All right. And then Jeff, your turn.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with both Nick and Nick. Thank you both for your service. I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Rippleworx. I've come from a long career in home building and real estate development and joined Rippleworx this year because my passion for helping people develop their skills aligns with Rippleworx' passion to be able to really develop people to be the best version of themselves. And so we're excited to be here to be a part of this discussion and how we can better serve our airmen with this topic. It's an exciting topic, and we're excited to have some good questions today. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So we'll get started with, what is the biggest challenge military families face when it comes to maintaining financial, physical, and mental well-being? So Matt, why don't I start with you?
Sure, absolutely. I'm glad I remembered to take myself off mute. So, I'm glad that when we thought about these questions, it was not just about the service member, right? We know that there's a whole family unit that's really involved when you're in the military, and military families face really unique stressors that include things like residential mobility, right? It's not quote unquote normal to be moving every 2 years. Thinking about parental separation and absence, being away, even just going to the field for 30 days, that can impact both the child and the parent greatly. Psychological trauma and loss that occurs throughout military life. And then the reintegration, either back from deployment or transition back to civilian life after leaving military life. We know that these are compounding issues, and that most individuals with a mental health condition ultimately will not seek treatment. In fact, according to RAND, the vast majority of active duty service members cite a desire to handle mental health problems on their own rather than seeking professional services. So we can't expect them to come knocking on our door when they need help. We need proactive or preventative solutions, such as finding ways to teach people resiliency or positive psychology. And we know the way we're doing that today with mandatory classes and PowerPoints just isn't working. So we have to find ways to really teach them and engage them with those techniques, and also find ways to react, right? So how do we identify those at risk to get them the immediate resources they need, whether that's local on base or crisis resources. So the goal should be finding solutions that are further and further upstream to identify those social needs that we know exist, and to connect them and make that connection point to the resources that we know already exist within the Air Force community. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff, how about you?
Matt, yeah, that was a great answer. When I thought about this question, I think, the biggest stressor is really all three components create stress for our airmen. And in one period of their life, it may be financial. Another period of life, it could be something that's going on with them from being away from their family. And so for us, I think Matt has his finger on it. How do we engage and understand what's going on before it becomes a problem? So at Rippleworx, we were really founded in the sports world, and our goal in the sports world is to make sure that athletes are ready to perform on the field. And so we have a technology that measures both their cognitive and their physical well-being, and we can look and we can predict when they're going to be ready to be on the field. And so we've taken that algorithm and we're applying it in other areas. And we can take wearables that our military people are wearing to understand what's going on with their physical health, apply it to what's going on in their financial world. And then we have a survey technology. So we know that our men in service aren't the most apt to say, hey, I need help, right? So we have a series of questions that we ask on a regular basis. And so our algorithm can see, based on how they answer questions, that something could be going on. We can compare that with what's going on with their physical well-being and then predict when we need to be able to interact. And then we would involve the professionals to help us really dig in to get them the help that they need. So thank you.
All right, Nick, you're up.
Yeah, I would echo something that Matt said, and without a doubt, it's the financial, physical, mental, emotional stresses that come with the PCS lifestyle, if you will. From the moment that new orders are in hand until the day the last box is unpacked, which for many of us could be 1, 3, 6. I mean, shoot, I know I still have boxes from 10 months ago in my basement that I haven't unpacked. PCSing is a mental and a physical stress on the family. And, the requirement to uproot our lives every 2 to 4 years, while a fact of military life, it does take a toll on the service members and their families. For example, I know that I'll have to ask my family to start over again. A new school, new friends for my daughters, new job, new church, new support structure for my wife. And the problem when it comes to home ownership is that even if I want to own a home at my new duty station, I'm severely penalized by high fees on both sides of the transaction that erode any chance I have at building financial wellness. And this is the case unless I accept the hassle, stress, and risk of being a long distance landlord. And this is the problem that UPROOT Homes is solving.
Fabulous. Great. All right, so we have another question. How can we work to remove the stigma around mental health within the Air Force? Who wants to take a stab at that first? Jeff?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. And I think, unfortunately, there's almost no way to remove the stigma because it's not just with airmen. It's really nationwide. We have a problem where we have struggled really since John F. Kennedy changed the way we handle mental health. We really don't understand, and we haven't put enough resources towards mental health. And so for me, again, I'd go back to the point is that we have to see and look at behaviors that are happening with our airmen so that we can know when they're under stresses. We can know that, as Nick described, when all these things are piling in on them about moving or their family, they're bottling it up and they're not going to share it. So what can we do to help them see what's going on, to be able to get them the help they may not even know that they need before they need it? And certainly we know they struggle with, once they do need it, being able to say, as Matt said, well, I can fix it myself and I can take care of it. So everything that we can do to really get out in front of it. Mental health is something that is deteriorating. And if you can catch it earlier, if you can get it before it becomes a problem, then I think we can do a lot to keep our airmen ready for their service and ready for being on the field.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I love this topic, right? And 25 minutes probably isn't alone to discuss stigma. We know that culture doesn't change overnight, but I would like to leave maybe 2 actionable solutions because I know people on this call are leaders, and that's a particularly unique role when we think about stigma. So whenever we think about programs and mental health programs, we really need to change the language and think about how we present that to our airmen. So what I propose to you guys is to think about it in terms of human performance, right? So how do we help airmen reach their highest potential? We can't say things like mental wellness and mental health because we know they're not going to engage with that. So simply, we need to understand that mental health is not simply the absence or presence of an illness, but rather it's a continuum, right? And how do we help airmen reach where they can be the best airmen both in the field and back home? And we need to feed into what they motivates them, right? So a lot of these guys are athletes. A lot of these guys care about their families at home. So how do we really reinforce what matters to them and make it feel like this is something that's important in their lives? I also want, if there's one big takeaway too from today, I want everyone to be really mindful with the language you use personally. What we use in the mental health community is called person first language. So let me give you a really quick example is my mom has chronic leukemia. So when people talk about my mom, they don't say that she is chronic leukemia, right? What they say about her is that she has chronic leukemia. Somebody has the flu. Somebody has, hypertension. But when we talk about mental health and mental illness, we say things like they are bipolar, right? They are schizophrenic, right? These are terms that we use often. And it might seem really silly that I'm even mentioning this, but there's a lot of research and backing that shows that we actually, when we speak about mental health and substance use conditions, the way we speak about them as other conditions, we can actually reduce stigma and the impact that it has. So particularly thinking about substance use disorder, what we found is that, or what researchers have found is if people say that they are an addict or some of that language that is not person first, they're more likely to recommend punishments rather than treatment. So thinking about the way that you speak in your own life as a leader and presenting these as very treatable conditions, just like other chronic health conditions, because we know as far as like relapse rates and how they actually present medically are very similar to how other chronic conditions present. So we should be speaking about them in the same way. So that's something you can actionably take away from today.
Wonderful. Nick, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment. I'm afraid I'm not going to be as eloquent and insightful as Matt. That was a great point that I'm thinking about, as I'm talking now. It's a challenge for sure, because no matter how many trainings or leaders address this, there's always going to be, something inside of us telling us not to show what we perceive as a weakness, to always be strong, to put our best foot forward for our troops. And, it's even harder in the age of social media when everyone else's life looks perfect on Facebook or the gram. Meanwhile, you look at your life and feel like it's crumbling around you. And so I think cultural change is hard, but we're on the right track. And at the organizational level, this challenge is great. And the Air Force and other services, have to follow through and bring these solutions to market for the well-being of the airmen. And at the individual level, I think it's just the realization, that everybody has their own stuff going on beneath the surface. And it actually takes great strength to be vulnerable. And that vulnerability has to be demonstrated and encouraged across the entire spectrum of leadership.
Yes, perfect. All right, well, we got a question from Michael. Thank you, Michael. It says, can Matt give an example of a positive way to talk to someone that we would like to help?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I think we often make it much more challenging than it has to be. Sometimes it's just being there, being okay in silence. Some of the best practice you can do in mental health is just riding an elevator with somebody, right? Just be okay with the uncomfortable silence. Sometimes just being a presence is what's most important. So being there, showing up, and acknowledging that when situations are hard, that it's hard, right? Like I understand that's really hard for you to do. Is there anything I can do to help? And be okay with not having to solve all those problems, but instead just being there and being a support. So you can certainly make suggestions, but what you want to do is just be there. And I don't know if that's necessarily answering your question, but I don't think you understand how important that can really be in someone's life.
Yeah, I'll tack on to that. I have a son who battles mental illness, and I love what Matt said. He's not mentally ill. He has an illness, and I would use this as the same example. When you have a friend who has cancer, how do you help somebody who has cancer, right? What they need is they need a friend, and they need somebody to accept them where they are, and somebody who can sit by with them when they're having chemotherapy and go through their treatments and be there to take care of things when they can't take care of things because they're not at their highest and best. And I think that's a big key, is that we got to realize that this is a disease, that it does impact people and it prevents them from being at their highest and best. And we can treat that just like we treat the other diseases that we know people have. And I think that will destigmatize and make that person feel accepted and realize that it's okay to share that you have this illness that you're battling. So.
All right, I know that we have some attendees out there that have some more questions. So if you have these three excellent panelists, you have their attention for the next 11 minutes. Make sure you ask any questions that you would like to, but we're going to go into some solutions now. So I'll ask Nick specifically, how do you solve or resolve the issues that you have found to be detrimental to our airmen? So how are you personally, your organization, doing that?
Right. Well, as I mentioned, we're focused on the PCS stressors and particularly, the struggle with active duty home ownership. And so we've created a hybrid home ownership solution that allows a series of military families to work together over time to pay down a single mortgage and reduce expenses when they buy and sell to each other by over 80%. And so we facilitate this system, we fill the trust and risk gap between owners, and we guarantee their home equity. So as an example, imagine, you get orders to Maxwell Air Force Base for 2 years. You don't want to retire there, and it's such a short period of time that it wouldn't really make sense financially to buy a home. But in UPROOT's hybrid home ownership system, your expenses would be significantly reduced. You would receive this home equity guarantee before you buy. So going into it that you're going to walk away with a decent check. For the average home in Huntsville, Alabama, for 2 years, that would be an extra $10,000 in your pocket that you could use to pay off debt, start a college fund for your kids, maybe invest in family memories at Disney. And at scale, this is a solution to, the failure of privatized housing that provides additional benefits of military service that will improve service member financial wellness, as well as increase talent recruitment and retention.
Fabulous. That is a fabulous, fabulous idea. You're a genius.
I feel inadequate compared to Matt and Jeff.
Oh, I think it's really solving a real problem. So it's a fabulous idea. All right, Jeff, what about you? What solutions are you bringing to the table?
Yeah, so the reason that I joined Rippleworx is, and I'll tell a quick short story, is several years ago, I decided I wanted to become an Ironman triathlete. I wanted to compete in an Ironman, and I'm not a long-term athlete, and I didn't know how to do that. Well, I hired a coach, and I had an interaction with a coach where he would prescribe daily activities for me to do. And over a 9-month period, I followed a training plan that I was able to compete in an Ironman triathlon. And what I call that is the ripple effect, is that if you repeat positive behaviors over time, then you can achieve something that you didn't think that you could achieve without doing those positive behaviors. The other thing that Rippleworx does is Rippleworx really uses the Moneyball principle of data analytics to be able to say, okay, if you're following a series of events on a regular basis, what can we do when we look at that data to be able to look for things that are positive and negative, and then have you stop doing the things that are negative and repeat the things that are positive. So when I got excited about Rippleworx is that what Rippleworx does is it creates a platform for an airman or for a master sergeant to be able to work with their people to be able to engage on a daily basis. So you can see the activities, assign activities that need to be done, monitor them, see what's working and what's not, and then adjust the behavior so that over a 4 or 5 month time, you can see somebody improve whatever the issue is that they're working on. So we might have somebody who's struggling financially, and what we might do is recommend them to Nick, right? To be able to say, we see what's going, your stress level's up, you need to contact a guy like Nick, because what really is driving your stress is your financial well-being. Or you may be struggling with, some real significant mental health issues, and we would then refer them to a program like that Matt would create to be able to really dig into something that we're not professional to be able to do, but we can identify those things, point the person in the right direction, and get them the help that they need. So that's how we address these issues.
Fabulous. All right, Matt.
Yeah, sure. So when I think about NeuroFlow, the first thing I always kind of start off with saying is that we're not a mental health app, right? Because I think that's where we always first get bucketed in, because we have an app component, right? And really what I want to say about what we do is that we're a platform that really directly connects airmen to medical care teams, right? So there's a two-way interface here. We're really enabling the medical care teams in the Air Force and military more broadly to be able to track and identify what's going on with their airmen at both the individual level and at the population health level. And we also, as far as the content and what's being received by the airmen, we never wanted a strategy of where we're just throwing the kitchen sink at everybody, right? We know that's what a lot of digital therapeutics do, where you have here's all of the mindfulness, here's all of these different strategies, all these techniques, and it can be pretty overwhelming for you as an end user. So what we've been able to do is then much more specifically tailor the resources and content that an individual receives based on their individual needs. So that might be mental health needs, but that's also their social needs, right? So going through social determinants, thinking about things like social isolation and loneliness, particularly during COVID. So we've been able to demonstrate this ability and commercially. We have over 250,000 end users right now under contract in the commercial world, working with across the healthcare spectrum. So we started with behavioral health providers to really assist increasing treatment plan adherence. So thinking about actually doing your homework after therapy, things like that. But we also then moved into the physical health space to really help incorporate mental health into physical health practice. And when we realized what we were able to do in supporting behavioral health providers and physical health providers, so thinking like your primary care provider, we also realized this is something we could do in the population health setting. So then now we're moving and also working with people like health payers and first responders. So that includes every single member of the Philadelphia, I'm in Philadelphia, so we support all of our first responders here in the city. That's fire, police, emergency response teams. And what we do first and foremost is to help with the measurement. So thinking about how do we actually measure what's going on socially and mentally with individuals. So that could be through questionnaires, things like that. But we also take in subjective data. So you can think of things like pain, mood, sleep, and activity data. So things like steps and biometrics to create what we call a severity score, but really scientifically it's a cumulative risk score. So it's a single metric that we can then use to help compare that person to the population and to themselves over time to actually see how are people trending. Are they getting better or are they getting worse? Where do they fall in the spectrum? And also then to compare populations to populations. So you can think about one unit on the base to another. How are these two units doing? You know, we hear a lot of stories about toxic leadership and things like that. So being able to capture things earlier in the stream so that we can intervene and resource allocate more effectively. And finally, you know, the last thing that I'll kind of touch on, because I know I'm watching the timer count down, is then to be able to identify those specific resources for each individual. So I always like to give examples. So, you know, Nick, you can tell he's got really high anxiety, right? Like how chill he looks. So, you know, if we identify that Nick has anxiety, then we can really push to him anxiety-related content, right? So that could be CBT and some related exercises. Whereas someone like Jeff, who's super well-adjusted, Jeff over here, he's going to be getting stuff more like positive psychology and resilience, because we know everyone can benefit from improving their mental wellness. It's just giving them the content that most benefits them as an individual. So being able to really individualize, tailor, and specialize that information down to the individual level, and then also to make it really unit and base specific. So everything in our platform is customizable. All of our resource guides, the stupid pocket guides we got every time we PCS'd, right? Those are all digitized so that everyone knows that they have a source of truth to go to for their mental wellness and human performance, right? If I'm using my own advice here. And currently, you know, I just want to give a shout out because we're already in the Air Force. We're working with Air Mobility Command and the U.S. Space Force, doing some really, really awesome work. So love to chat about that because they've been great partners.
Awesome. Well, so I think we have time for one more question. And I think it's an important one. What help do the three of you need from people in the audience today? Nick, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I think we could at UPROOT could benefit from two things. And one is, you know, if our program sounds like it would provide value to you and your fellow airmen, you know, send me an email, nick@uproothomes.com. Any airman or DoD service member can sign an MOU to work with us, and we would love to bring our solution to your unit. And two, we would love help connecting to the folks in Air Force Housing and Air Force Personnel Center, as well as local units like Base Housing, Airmen and Family Readiness Centers, the Key Spouse Program. And if you can help make a connection to these or the equivalent offices in the DoD services, please reach out, email me, or hit me up on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Awesome. Jeff?
I think this is exciting for us. What we really are looking forward to is we've seen a lot of success with our athletes in the sports world. And any of you who are interested in helping the performance or helping to understand what's going on with your airmen, we really just need more data for this particular stream, right? We want to work closely to be able to understand what are the stressors that are out there. You know, it sounds like Matt and I are very much in the same field of looking at behaviors over time, looking for things that can create or identify things that can predict stressors. And the more data that we can create, the more data that we can analyze, the more that we can really refine our program. We're also very customizable to be able to meet the needs of a specific unit. So we just love to hear from you. My email is jeffkingsfield@rippleworx.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'm also on LinkedIn, and anything we can do to follow up to help you, we're there to help. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, Matt, bring us home.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thanks for everybody for joining. This is great. Thanks, Jeff, Nick. You know, for us, I'm here to. One of my passions in life is to implement wellness programs. So if you guys just want some advice and understanding on what you could do better, I'm here to help. I want to be a resource. I'm very reachable. I think my email's up on the little tiny screen for me. And really what I want to know is what challenges people are facing. Because if we don't know what challenges to address, then we don't know where to start from. So I really want to hear in your experiences, you know, through with airmen, what challenges are you facing with getting people into care? You know, from our discussions, we understand that there are certain functional groups that have it more challenging than others. So those are groups that we've been targeting and working with. But what I really want to know is what other challenges are you facing, and finding if we can help develop solutions for that.
Awesome. Look at that, right on time. Perfect. Everyone, thank you so much for attending this panel. All of these topics are super important to the well-being of not only our airmen, but all of their families, near and far. So thank you very much. And all of the regular scheduled programming will start back on the AFWERX Fusion website here momentarily. And just thank you all for your time.